Okay, today I'm going to be reviewing Batman Arkham Asylum, a fairly recent release for the Xbox 360, PlayStation 3, and Microsoft Personal Computer. I played the 360 version myself, so I'll be reviewing that particular version. When it comes to video game developers, one of the oldest tricks in the book is to make a crappy game and just put a famous name on the title of it, like sometimes it might be Spider-Man, maybe it's Harry Potter, the Lord of the Rings cast, even Britney Spears. The list goes on and on. You can make a bad game, slap a famous name on the title, and you're probably going to sell some copies. Maybe not millions on millions, but you'll probably break even, maybe do a little better, and you're going to sell a lot more copies than you probably deserve. So a lot of times when it comes to famous names, video games have had a bad experience. So when news of this game broke and I got a look at the screenshots, I was intrigued. I thought, hey, this game looks pretty cool. Maybe these guys know what they're doing, but at the same time I was cautious because I know how these kinds of video games can work a lot. A lot of times it's the wrong person and they got the wrong idea of what they need to do and the game doesn't come out so well. So I just kind of looked at it and thought, hey, maybe it has a chance, but ultimately I probably wasn't going to actually play it. And then some very positive reviews started pouring in, and I thought, hey, cool, they got it right, that's awesome. I still probably wasn't going to play it, but at least I knew that these guys cared about their product enough to produce a good game. Because there's no reason why you can't make a good Batman game when you think about it. It's an awesome concept. There's no reason why you can't make a good Batman game. And when I say good reviews, I mean really good reviews. It's getting like 90% plus at game rankings. All the major outlets are giving it very positive reviews, that sort of thing. So not only did this look like a passable game, it looked like a great game potentially, but I probably wasn't going to get a chance to play it still. But anyway, I got a chance to go to the Penny Arcade Expo, or PAX, and I wanted to play some of the games that weren't out yet, but the lines were way too long, so I just wanted to go play some games that I hadn't played yet, you know, recent releases, things that looked cool. So I got there and I thought, hey, they got the Batman game, okay, I'll check this out. And I played through like the first part of it, and I really liked what I saw. I was really impressed with the mood, the atmosphere, the gameplay. It looked promising, so when I got home I decided I was going to rent it, and I did. Anyway, I rented it about a week ago. Of course, I've beaten it by now. I did all the side stuff that's in the game. I played all the challenges, and here are my thoughts. Now, of course, everybody remembers the Batman craze that The Dark Knight kicked off last summer, one of the most successful movies ever made. Now, this game obviously isn't a video game adaptation of that movie, but at least partially it's trying to cash in on the Batman craze that The Dark Knight kicked off. But again, this video game is not an adaptation of The Dark Knight or any Batman movie. If anything, it takes elements of some graphic novels, maybe some stuff that happened in the comics, but they didn't get lazy and just slap the title of a movie on it. They created their own story. Basically, the events of the game are as follows. Batman captures the Joker and takes him to be incarcerated in Arkham Asylum, like he always does. And like the Joker always does, he escapes very quickly, and through the use of hundreds of Blackgate inmates that had been transferred earlier that day to Arkham Asylum, manages to take over the facility from the inside out. It's up to Batman to fight his way out of the madness, track down the Joker, and bring him to justice. On the way, you run into some other familiar faces like Commissioner Gordon, Harley Quinn, Poison Ivy. I'm not really spoiling anything here, but I'm not going to go too far into the story. I'm going to let you guys play it and find out on your own. The game combines a couple different genres. The camera angle is very reminiscent of Resident Evil 4 and maybe even Dead Space. It kind of does that thing where it's over the shoulder of the player, it's third person, it's a little like first person. You guys know what I'm talking about if you played Resident Evil 4. It's not exactly like that, but it's pretty close. The combat reminds me of a beat-em-up game. That's the best comparison I can give. Basically, all four main buttons on your controller do something with the combat, so there are lots of different strings and combinations that you can do to defeat your enemies. Like, for instance, A is to flip over the enemy, X is the strike, B is the stun, and Y is the counter. And There are a couple different combos like A and X at the same time and B and Y at the same time, but they really don't matter. The game is all about stringing together combos by hitting buttons in a particular order, and it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun to whip up on enemies, especially the generic henchmen that just have no chance against you as long as you know what you're doing. And this goes back to what I was saying about the video game developers caring about their product. They really wanted to capture the essence of Batman, and I think they did. I mean, when Batman gets involved in hand-to-hand combat with generic thugs, he's going to win every time, even if there are 20 of them and one of him. I mean, that's what Batman does. I mean, the combat is a lot of fun, and you can get beat if you don't know what you're doing, but at the same time, if you know what you're doing, you should have no problem beating up 20 guys at once. And that is one thing I really like about this game, especially with the counter system. With the counter system, there's really no excuse to not be able to do combat effectively. The rest of the game is a little bit like an exploration game, but really the game area is not that big, so I'm hesitant to call it like a Grand Theft Auto type of exploration deal. But there are a lot of detective-like elements in it. It really embraces that whole idea of Batman being a master detective, and he's all about analyzing a crime scene, trying to find clues, figuring out where to go next based on what he sees. You do a lot of that in this game. I actually ended up playing pretty much the whole game using the detective mode, which puts everything in like this infrared and highlights your enemies, highlights the ones that carry particular weapons, and really just makes it obvious where you're supposed to go. It's actually a lot of fun to analyze the game with the detective mode because it always works and it's always an effective way to get the drop on your enemy. The game actually manages to do a good job of doing away with pretty much all the platformer elements. I mean, this game could have very easily been very much like a platformer, but the jump system pretty much prevents that. You have to be running toward a ledge in order to do a jump, meaning that really there's no way to screw up jumps from platform to platform, and it really doesn't become an issue, and in this instance I think that's a good thing. I mean, there are a lot of things going on in this game. It didn't need to be a platformer, and they really did a good job of just cutting that potential element out of the game, and I approve. The best part of the game is the stealth element, and you really don't have to use it until you run into enemies that have guns, but I prefer to use it in every situation because I think it's more fun, generally more effective, and you can still have fun with the combat in certain situations of the game, so I just like to go stealth every opportunity that I get. It's just a lot of fun to sneak around, pick off your enemies, and just not be seen while you do it. You can really drive your enemies crazy, make them pee their pants, that kind of stuff. I really get a kick out of all that, so that's really the best part of the game. Honestly, my favorite specific part of the game is going up against a large group of armed henchmen because there's just a lot of good balance there. For instance, if you go into direct combat with some armed henchmen, you are done, because the guns in this game are very powerful. The henchmen are extremely accurate and extremely competent with firearms, and if they see you, they will just lay you to waste. You have no chance against an armed opponent. So if you run into a henchman with a gun, you absolutely have to hide, and I really enjoy that. It really makes the game feel more realistic. You can't just stand around and hope that the henchmen miss, because they pretty much never miss. It's all about you trying to avoid being seen and taking them out silently, and that's something I really get a kick out in this game. So the other part of that would be the fact that if you're sneaking around, if you're using the ventilation ducts, the maintenance hatchways, the gargoyles, the ceiling, and all that other crap, you are pretty much untouchable even by the armed henchmen. If you know what you're doing, you can pick them off one by one, no problem. You can really frustrate them, you can humiliate them, and you're probably going to have a lot of fun in this game. So that's really, that balance is what I'm talking about. That's what I really want to see in a Batman game. If I go head to head with a guy with a gun, I'm dead. There's no question. I will be laid to waste in a matter of seconds. I have no chance. But if I sneak around, if I'm cautious, they have no chance against me. With that in mind, I'll just say that it's a very nice treat, and this happens several times in the game, where you can walk into a room and there are like 8 or 9 or 10 armed henchmen, and you have to go through the room hiding in the shadows and just trying to not be seen while you pick them off one by one. That sort of stuff is the funnest thing you can do in this game, and really the reason why I think it's an excellent game. So there's really a lot of creativity involved here, and you gotta love stuff like that. You can just sit there for hours thinking of different ways to defeat your enemies, and you're gonna have a lot of fun doing it. So really, that's the important part of the game. The gameplay is excellent. I do want to say that the graphics are superb. I've seen better. There are a couple moments where like the cape will pass through somebody's arm for no particular reason. Little things like that, but that's just nitpicking. Who really cares? The voice acting is top notch. They got guys like Conroy and Mark Hamill back to do the voices of their characters, which is awesome, and they hit it spot on. The music is great. You get the Batman theme you'll probably remember from the movies. But I really wanted to talk about the gameplay here. Let's be real, that's what's important. The game is great. I would definitely recommend checking it out, but I really can't think of a good reason to own it unless you're a giant Batman fan, because you can beat the game in, at most, 4 or 5 days. There are some extra things to do, like the challenges especially, but honestly I can't think of any reason to buy this game. It's an excellent rental, but I think it's a little too short to own.